Good morning and welcome to another edition of awakentheworld.ca. My name is Garen, and this morning we're going to be talking about the purpose of our existence. Now, if there's two questions that have plagued mankind since the dawn of time, one of those has been, of course, is what is our purpose? And the other one has been, why are we here? We're going to deal with them both together since they're actually intricately linked. You really can't separate the two of them. Now, one of the best ways to talk about why we're here is to talk about why we're not here. So we're just going to cover those off first because you would think those are pretty obvious. I have my dog Asana here with a piece of her rope. She wants to play tug of war with me, but I think my wife is going to take her. So forgive me if you hear the tapping of the dog's claws on the laminate in the background. She's a really good dog, but she also has totally her own personality, and when she says it's time to play, it's time to play. So what we are not. Well, we are not these seemingly limited beings skittering to and fro across the planet's surface. We are not that. We are not our bodies. We are not our egoic sense of selves, that voice we hear in our head. Now, that doesn't mean that those aren't valuable things at all, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. We are not our jobs. We are not any of the forms we identify with or any of the roles we identify with. So mother, and there's going to be some women who may be a little upset with me over this one, and there's a little story to go along with that I'm going to tell. Mother, for example, is a role. Now, my wife had one of her girlfriends over who she's known for decades about a year ago, and sadly her girlfriend hasn't come over since then. But in a nutshell, I mentioned that I was fully aware and understood the feeling a woman has of connectedness with her offspring. And the reason I do is because I've had past lives as women, and I have full memories of those and full memories of that feeling. I feel that same connectedness with the whole of the human race now. And when I mentioned this, of course, she actually got quite upset about it and said that a man could never understand the pain of that connection when your child isn't around. And, after they had left, I said to my wife, I said, it's so sad that both you and your friend and many other women look at that, what they call pain, and their perception, their egoic judgment of that is that it's pain, when in fact that feeling of connectivity is joy. It is the joy of knowing no matter how far away they are, no matter whether they're alive or dead, you as the being who gave birth, who was the entranceway into this physical illusion for them to live out their journey, you as that physical gateway have this gift attached to being that gateway. And that gift is a lifelong connection to that being that you set on their path. And to me, that connection is a beautiful thing. It is not a painful thing in separation. It's the understanding that even in your perceived separation from your offspring, they're not separate from you. But I get off topic. So I'm going to, on purpose, get back onto purpose. We are shards of God. If God was an infinite mirror, you, as that infinite mirror, as the absolute, you wouldn't be able to reference yourself because, of course, in order to reference yourself, you need relativity. You need, and I've said this 3 or 4 times over the last videos, but you need cold in order to understand hot. You need love in order to experience hate. You need joy and sadness Each one has to come with its polar opposite for you to have the experience to start with. That's why all the great spiritual teachers and gurus and masters say, to look for your experience within, because that is the place where true experience rises, okay? So we are all shards of that mirror, and as the absolute being, the mirror, in order to see itself, decided one day, I've got it. I'm going to break myself down within myself. I'm going to smash my own mirror. And all those shards are going to expand out into relative space, and our universe was created. Now, each one of those shards, no matter how conscious, or at first they were all very unconscious. The shards were sound asleep. They simply floated out into the vastness of the universe, and over time, love, attraction, gravity, love at the sight of itself, those little shards began at a sea of consciousness level, began to get nearer to each other and collect and to swirl. And as those shards grew, they began to develop a type of self-awareness, a type of conscious awareness. At the relative physical universe level, of course, gases began to coalesce. Interstellar dust, suns were born, galaxies were born, planets were born. This is all this journey of all of creation looking back upon itself. Each of us manifests a body for a time. And within that body there is an ego, and that ego is our personality. Now, yes, we come into this world with some previously set up characteristics. And when I first met my wife, I looked at her 3 children, and quite matter-of-factly and objectively, I said, okay, here's where your middle boy is sitting, and here's where your older boy is sitting, and here's where your younger boy is sitting. And the younger child still hasn't fully developed his ego yet. So there's a good chance we're going to be able to, make some real progress turning him around. The other 2, I'm not really sure about. Well, when Kelly actually went back and looked at them as babies, she realized that the same personality, we're going to call them afflictions, even though they're not an affliction. They're the gifts that once realized and integrated properly lead to the gift that you offer the world, okay? But we're going to call them afflictions just as a word convention. So those afflictions, or those things that they would have to deal with in their lives in order to fully realize themselves, she recognized them as little tiny babies before ego was born. Okay, because ego, of course, is a collection of everything that's happened to the I, that false sense of self. Okay, remember, you are a shard of the Creator. But that I is valuable. That false sense of self, that forms your personality, and that personality is a one-of-a-kind lens, a one-of-a-kind look of the Creator looking onto itself. Never before the appearance of a conscious being in this universe could the Creator know beauty. It was just a concept. You have to be able to have what you see as not beauty to be able to see beauty. And beauty is something we're going to talk about one day too, because beauty is so much more than skin deep. I could talk about beauty all day. Beauty comes in the things that cause us to become still, that cause us to experience awe and wonder. Well, why are we here? We are here to evolve. That is both our purpose for existence and our reason for being here. This evolution is a multi-dimensional growth in consciousness. It doesn't begin on the physical realm. It begins, as all things do, in the sea of consciousness, over what we would consider time. And if you haven't watched the video on time stands still, I suggest you do. It's a great little video. We one day experience conscious connection with that sea of consciousness, Satori. A full awareness of the oneness of all at the same time that we have an awareness of our intrinsic individuality within that oneness. The relative world we exist in today is a result of this evolution at a spiritual level that manifests itself into the relative universe. It is sad to say, unfortunately, that we are still very much an infantile species in so many ways. I mean, on a universal level, we rank somewhere in the beginning stages of preschool. And of course, our physical manifestations into this relative realm are very much indicative of that. You just have to look around you. I mean, we create machines of war, and we create so many things to do harm. And it's not that we don't create things that do good as well, but we lack the maturity as a species. We lack the emotional, mental, and spiritual maturity to be able to look at what we create and make objective decisions as to whether or not we should keep it or get rid of it. You know, and this has always been one of our issues as an infantile and quite immature species. Our functional purpose, our function while we're here, okay, is to grow in understanding that as shards of the Creator, every thought, every word, every deed we have is creative. We create our personal and collective reality every moment of every day. That is our functional purpose, to become aware of what we are creating, both as individuals and as communities and as a species, and then to choose to start creating consciously. Because right now, a great deal of our creating is done unconsciously. Every role that we choose in life is an opportunity to demonstrate conscious creating. And keep in mind, again, you are not your roles. Now, you know, as a mother, because that's the example I used, you know, there's a lot of moms out there right now who may be saying, you know what, you bastard, I am a mother and that's who I am. And you know, I'm sorry, but it's not. Mother is a role that you take on. And ego very easily identifies with roles to form its identity. Now that doesn't mean that being, mother, to me, is the holy word in all of creation. Womb. The space where all possibilities exist, where life thinks about itself and gestates and decides what it wants to become. And the mother takes all of that. It's a glorious thing, but it is a role. And when we become too over-identified with roles, we lose sight of reality and what we truly are. We limit ourselves. You are so much more than that. So knowing our functional purpose is to take conscious charge of our thoughts, our words, and our deeds and become responsible creators. What does that mean as a mother? Well, that means you put aside your feelings about the role, which can often lead you to make choices in regard to your child that are more concerned with how you're going to feel about yourself or how they're going to feel about you, instead of the choices that are going to necessarily benefit them the most. And that doesn't mean all the time, but it does happen. It doesn't matter what we are actually physically doing, whether it's a mother or a paper boy or mopping a floor. It is the inner state in which we are doing that is important. Because as I talked about before, we're not actually the doer anyways. So the best place for us to be in order for us to simply enjoy the happening of the doing is to come from a place of stillness. That is what I mean by the inner state. As we evolve, our creations will become more and more consciously designed. More and more will we create out of a need to see the whole served and the whole cared for. Now, this glorious purpose that we're here for has nothing to do with whether or not you're going to have a new boyfriend, whether or not your child is going to do well in school, whether or not you're going to have a successful career. None of those things have anything to do with your purpose for being here. And yet all of those things can play a role. And life becomes a dance when you understand that your purpose for being here is being fulfilled just by your presence. You know, if you could see the intricate, beautiful web of creation in the way I see it, you would see that there is nothing that you could ever do or not do that can take away from the fulfillment of your purpose. All the things that happen down here, they're all part of the play. Yeah, it's fun. And it can go a long way to contributing towards your purpose. But all of creation, God, the Creator, Allah, the Divine Spirit, the voice in the wind, makes all things perfect regardless. You can't mess up being on this earth. Now, and believe me, okay, I've been through it, and I don't like to dwell on negativity, and quite frankly, I don't really understand what negativity is anymore. I've given up on it. But some of the next few things I'm going to say would appear very negative, and they're not. They were all parts of the reason that the what I had to go through in order to become what I needed to be, okay? But I have been through war, 15 long years in active fields of combat, on top of another decade of service mixed in with that. I have seen people blown away right before my eyes, my own friends. I've felt a bullet tear into myself. I've experienced these things. None of that has taken away from me or my purpose. Because every event, everything, whether I judged it as good or bad, has caused an evolution forward in my state of mind, in my state of, in my emotional state, in my spiritual state, in my physical state. It's all been an evolution. And when you can come to that realization that your purpose here is already fulfilled, it's assured, you cannot fail. You can take all the pressure off yourself. You know, there's been a few comments, because I mentioned it, that I do some life coaching, and I do. And, you know, I take a totally different approach to life coaching as a role I play. Okay, and a lot of people, quite frankly, don't like it because I will not build your ego up. My goal is to tear your ego down, so you can, so the light that you are inside can shine through. And in that moment, all the things you think you need coaching about on your life are going to disappear. Really, my style of coaching doesn't earn me anything. It really doesn't. Because what I do is say, okay, I'll tell you what, you know, I'm going to give you 4 hours the first week and 2 hours the next week and 1 hour every week after that for a total of 2 months altogether. And when you're done, if you feel your life is profoundly changed, you go ahead and pay me. When you're done, if you didn't follow anything I said, if you didn't do the work and you didn't do the simple lessons, you're not going to be changed. You're not going to make any progress for yourself. And I'm certainly not going to take any money from you for that. So my life coaching is a totally different sort of ball of wax. Basically, what your purpose here is to surrender, to enjoy the trip, to surrender to whatever's in front of you, to look at the ego pushing up against things and understand that it's lunacy not to accept what already exists right in front of you. It's here. It's now. Your purpose, understanding your true purpose to evolve, is to look upon what's in front of you not as a block, not as a door, not as a wall or a hindrance, but as an opportunity to grow. An opportunity to let some of that light that you are out into the world. And that's really about it when it comes to purpose. It's that simple. Your purpose here is to evolve. Now, I'm going to give you a little hint about where you are going and where we as a species are going. And this is going to be kind of a right hook across the cheek for some people. And I will talk about it more, maybe on next week's Sunday's talk, okay? But I'm going to give you a little hint about where we are going and where you are going. The creative essence that created this universe is only one. Now, what if I told you that the number of universes are also beyond your imagination? And every one of those universes has a conscious creative essence. It is a conscious creative essence. The whole entirety of the universe is a conscious creative being. Chew on that one for a while. As always, I want to remind you that you are a powerful, creative, wonderful spiritual being, a shard of the Creator itself, here manifesting a human experience. Your soul, what you truly are, your higher being, the Creator does not reside inside the body. It manifests the body within itself. All the power to heal, all the power to experience, all the power and strength to simply surrender, to let go and let God belong to you. Stay tuned for more videos in the upcoming week. Again, I love you all, and namaste.